Do you need me to come back there? If it has issues with sound, all you got to do is close the application and reload it, and it will usually work. And you reload it, and 99.9% of the time it starts working. He never did that? I've been telling him you guys do that for like 10 minutes. Is it working? Oh boy. Do I need to repeat the stuff that I said? All right, okay, we're going to open in prayer. Okay, say, Father, thank you for letting everybody be here. I pray that everybody that should be here is here, and that they learned something from what I've prepared, and because that's the only way it's going to make sense, Lord. And just say prayer. Amen. So, I'm going to be teaching on something I've been struggling with. We're going to be learning about eating healthy. No, I'm kidding. We're going to be learning about compassion. That is the title of this message, is compassion, and that is something that I struggle with, and I do learn things better when I teach about them. I read a scientific fact one time that says you retain 20% of what you read, 30% of what you hear, 40 or 50% of what you do, and 100% of what you teach. So, you teach it, you'll remember it. You're almost guaranteed to remember that fact unless you're just really, really bad at remembering things. Like, I can do that. Yes, I know. And I have inherited some of that. It's sprinkled into some of my everyday life. Like, I can't ever remember where I put my keys, but that's about the gist of it, hopefully. Hopefully when I get older it doesn't get worse. But during this lesson, we're going to be trying to basically put ourselves in the shoes of other people and try to understand how they think and like have compassion on them by looking through their eyes. So I have a couple of bullet points, and the first one is we must be compassionate like Christ was and is today. If you read the Bible at all, you'll see that he is compassionate to the point where everybody is judging him because he should not be compassionate about how sinful these people are and stuff like that. And that is something that we should follow. Now, please understand when I'm saying that we should be compassionate like Christ, I'm not saying we should justify what the person is doing. There's a very fine line in between being compassionate towards someone, feeling pity for them, empathizing for them, and trying to reach out to them because of that, and being like, well, it's okay what they're doing because of what happened in their past, kind of pity. Like, oh, they had a bad childhood, so it's understandable why they're like that, so that's fine. They can do what they want because they didn't have any problems. I mean, they had problems, so that's why they're doing that. It's not to any fault of their own, which is incorrect. Everybody's sins are their own, and that is their fault. But we can have compassion for them and the lost people in this world. We should have compassion for them, and that is something I struggle with. When I see somebody doing something really dumb, I like to be like, that's dumb. But I should be like Jesus was and have compassion for them and try to put myself in their shoes and understand why they're doing that or how they could ever do that. In my mind, when it seems so crazy, but in reality, it's not if I think about it for just a little bit. So, I'm going to read I'm going to fast fire several verses about Jesus being compassionate. It's going to be several sporadic verses. I'm just going to do it on my phone because it's more convenient to do. These are going to be like 30 different verses in 3 different books. Not 30, more like 10. But I'm going to read those off when I get there. All right, so I'm going to start from the bottom. Okay, Mark 8:2. I feel compassion for people because they have remained with me now for 3 days and have had nothing to eat. This is Jesus. I just looked up a bunch of times that Jesus had compassion for people. This is Jesus talking currently. When the Lord saw her, he felt compassion for her and said to her, "Do not weep." Moved with compassion, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him and said, "I am willing, be healed." The Lord, the God of their fathers, sent word to them again and again and again by his messengers, because he had compassion on his people and his dwelling place. He went ashore, he saw a large crowd, and he felt compassion for them and healed their sick. So, those are the verses. Huh? Okay. They're all in Mark 8:2. I feel compassion for the people because they have remained with me now 3 days and had nothing to eat. Luke 7:13. When the Lord saw her, he felt compassion for her and said to her, do not weep. Mark 1:41. Moved with compassion, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, I am willing, be cleansed. 2 Chronicles 36:15. The Lord, the God of their fathers, sent word to them again and again and again by his messengers, because he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. Matthew 14:14. When he went ashore, he saw a large crowd and felt compassion for them and healed their sick. So, those are all the verses. But if you notice, when Jesus sees those, it's said specifically on one of them, it says, and when he saw her, he had compassion on her and said, do not weep, which I assume was a time where the person was woefully overwhelmed with the fact of their sins, and brain dead. Yeah, I've totally lost track. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah, she was overwhelmed about the sins that she had committed, and Jesus, instead of being judgmental and angry at her for the sins that she committed against him, which is ultimately who she was committing sins against, is that says it clearly in the Bible that when you sin against God himself. Instead of being angry with her, he had compassion with her. And he had compassion with the crowd. He could have been angry at the fact that there was thousands of people on the beach blocking him from doing whatever he was going to do that day, and how they're all just over there and they're in a frenzy to get their sick healed. And instead, it said that he had compassion for them and he healed their sick. We should follow that example. We should look at somebody and instead of being angry at what they're doing in the moment or be angry about what they did in the past, we should try our best to try to understand why that person is doing it, and try to put yourself in their shoes and see how bad they could possibly be hurting, and then spread the love and compassion of Jesus Christ with them. This is something that guys specifically struggle with. Now, girls, I've seen it at least 300 million times where they're like, oh, baby, it's going to be okay. And they're sobbing on each other's shoulders and they're hugging each other and stuff. And, like, there's so much compassion. It's overwhelming and it's great. Good job. Now, guys, some guy starts crying, which doesn't hardly ever happen in public. The other one's suck it up, buttercup. It's like, I mean, that's how it is. There's no hugging. There's no, like, having compassion at all. It's just there. I'm not saying that guys don't do that. I have seen plenty of guys, like, give a bro a hug and have compassion and show them love that Jesus Christ would have. But it is a lot harder, and for whatever reason, it's a lot more awkward. And that is something that us guys are going to have to work on, because it is something that helps. It is something that works, and it blows your mind when you actually do it. An example, this wasn't even like an example of helping a lost person, but Fuller was getting super, super overwhelmed with his football game. He's like, he's not having a good time because he's like, is the championship, it felt like the whole thing was on his shoulders, and it was, because he's super, super good, and if he went down, the team's morale was going to go down with him, and he couldn't handle himself, he was scatterbrained, and a lot of people were like, man, you can win this game. It was all this kind of hype him up, and he was just, it wasn't working, and so I went over there, and instead of being my normal big brother self, where I wanted to go over there and slap his helmet and just like mess with him, I saw what he needed, and I gave him a hug on the football field, which is not, that's like against the football code. You don't hug people on the football field. But after that, he immediately calmed down, and he got his wits back to himself, and he ended up playing the last bit of the game with more level head than he had the rest of the game. And that is what compassion can do, because sometimes people just need a little bit of compassion in order to keep going out through their day. So we're going to do an interesting little experiment. I want everybody to close their eyes, and we're going to, no, I'm not going to stick something in your hand, Dulcie, trust me. Just close your eyes. You don't have to eat whatever I'm handing you when your eyes are closed. That's in the past. It's childhood stuff. But everybody close their eyes, and we're going to try to envision and just focus on something real quick. So, think to yourself that you're the only person on this face of this planet Earth that can see through your eyes that you have, that can feel with the hands that you have, and that can think with the brain that you have. No one else is going to ever experience the world like you've experienced it, because everybody's a unique individual. And you're not going to be able to look into other people's eyes, and you're not going to be able to see the world through their perspective. And you're the only one that can actually be the person that you are and see how you're seeing. You can't see your own face, and you're the only person that has the soul that you have, and you're the only person that can do that. Now open your eyes, and let's think about other people for a second. It's something that people overlook a lot. Have you guys ever thought, when you're driving down the road or you drive through a town, that basically every single car that you see is another human being or a whole family? Sometimes it's easy to rationalize as it's just a car that drives around with a person in it, but it's just this mean person likes to cut you off and honk at you and be a jerk. I mean, this is for people that have road rage, okay? Which I have struggled with that in the past, but honestly, I can say that I have been getting better about how when someone cuts me off, I can think to myself, okay, how many times have I purposefully cut someone off? It's 99% probable that that person accidentally did that. And so I'd like you to, like, when somebody ticks you off or somebody does something like that, let's say on the road, for example, realize that is another person with another life that has a pair of eyes just like you and a soul just like you, that can make a mistake just like you. And think to yourself, do they really just wake up in the morning today and maliciously think, I'm going to go cut off Braden White at this intersection? Because that is basically how our brains rationalize it when we get cut off. We're like, I cannot believe this person did this. They've done me a great injustice. It is the end of the world. I hope they die. Like, this wouldn't get really, really angry. But it may be something else. I'm not pointing any fingers. I have experienced that with other humans, but we're not going to talk about that. But it really helps when you try to think of the world through someone else's eyes. Now, let's go to another situation. We've thought about cars. There's real people in all those cars. There's real people in all these businesses that you drive by, and they're all people with individual lives that may or may not know Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. Now, let's think about when you go into a divvy trip. And there's all these people around, and a lot of the times, like, you may say, hey, or how's your day going? And it's good, but that's it. You just briefly interact with that person. Now, you're waiting in line, and there's the people behind you. Now, try to step into their shoes. Try to look through their eyes and think about what's going on in their day. Maybe you run into somebody at a divvy trip that's super disgruntled, maybe treats the cash register person rudely. You step into their shoes and step into what they were thinking about, what happened during their day, why they could be upset, and you rationalize why, instead of instantly getting angry at them like everybody else at the building did when they treated someone rudely. And you think about what's happened in their past, you think about what happened in that day, and you think about maybe what stuff was going on like home, and you realize that could all be a byproduct of them just having a bad day. And so then you give that person grace, and you don't sit there and you just get ticked off of them. And you could even possibly take the opportunity to brighten their day. When I see somebody that's disgruntled, I try my dang best to make their day better. It usually bites me in the butt. It doesn't always work. Usually they're just like, you know what? Go die in a hole. I'm like, well, just said good morning, but all right. You can go do that. I try. But I try because sometimes those people are like, man, it's been rough. And then you get an opportunity to possibly witness those people. Something that I like to do, and I haven't done it very often, but I've done it one time and had great success, was when you're standing at the divvy trip and there's those people that are just doing their normal day-to-day stuff. You try to put a slip in there that doesn't normally happen on a day-to-day basis, that grabs their attention, and then it sparks a conversation with that person, and then you can witness to them. I've done it before where you maybe go up to the counter and you say, hey, I'm paying for this coffee, and that guy's getting coffee too, pay for his. And you scan and you leave. Well, I tried to do that one day with a bag of ice, and I left, and I went to my truck, and I got in it, and the dude chased me down with a 8-pound bag of ice, and he like stands at my door, and I roll down the window. He's like, why did you buy my ice? And I was like, oh man, is this guy getting angry at me for buying his ice? Like, I'm so sorry. Is this a personal offense to you? I mean, I can give you the money. I mean, you can pay me. I don't know. But he said, why did you do that? And it was the Holy Spirit talking at that point, and I said, Christ has given me eternal salvation, and he's given me joy in my life. So I figured the least I could do is spread a little bit of joy into someone else's day by paying for something like a bag of ice. And he said, all right, cool, and then left. That was it. That was the end of that conversation. But going down the road, in that same town, I ran into that same guy at O'Reilly's, and I was having to buy a $280 vacuum pump, and this dude that I bought ice for one time said, hey, you can come to my house and you can borrow my $280 vacuum pump. I was like, what? Wow, that's a lot. There's a lot that a bag of ice can get you, apparently. But I didn't end up taking him on the offer. But when I see that guy, he instantly smiles, and he remembers that act of kindness. And hopefully down the road, we can have another conversation where I can witness to him and hopefully spread Christ to him down the road. But I don't know. This is a short lesson, and I was like completely derailed and debunked and screwed up at the beginning. So nothing went as planned, but that's pretty much it. It wasn't a very good one. But I had a lot of things, but I got interrupted too much, and my brain's fried now. So. Yep. Okay, let's close in prayer. So, Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you for everybody that is here. I pray we'll have a good rest this evening and a good rest this week. And please give us opportunities to show compassion to other people. And just say, I pray. Amen.